जय गोपीजनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी। यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन। यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन। यमुनातीरवनचारी। जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे रामा राम राम हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा, कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। जय कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम, कृष्ण बलराम जय कृष्ण बलराम। जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय, गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतषि श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की। इस्कॉन संस्थापकाचार्य जगत गुरु सेव द होल वर्ल्ड श्रील प्रभुपाद की। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 4, Text number 11. Namanti yat pada niketam atmanaha shivaya haniya dhanani shatravaha katham sa viraha श्रियम अंग दुष्त्यजाम युव ऐशत utsarashtum aho sahasubihi namanti yat padaniketam-atmanaha shivasya hani yadhanani shatvaraha katam saviraha shriyamanga dushtjam yuvaishato shratum aho sahasubihi. Namanti, bow down. Yat pada, whose feet. Niketam, under. Atmanaha, own. Shivaya, welfare. Haniya, used to bring about. Dhanani, wealth. Shatravaha, enemies. Katham, for what reason? Saha, he, Viraha, the chivalrous, Shriyam, opulences, Anga, O Suta Goswami, Dushtjam, insuperable, Yuva, in full youth, Aishata, desired, Utsrashtum, to give up, Aho, exclamation, Saha, with, Ashubhihi, life. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything, including his own life? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There was nothing undesirable in his life. He was quite a young man and could enjoy life with power and opulence. So there was no question of retiring from active life. There was no difficulty in collecting the state taxes because he was so powerful and chivalrous that even his enemies would come to him and bow down at his feet and surrender all wealth for their own benefit. Maharaja Parikshit was a pious king. He conquered his enemies, and therefore the kingdom was full of prosperity. There was enough milk, grains and metals, and all the rivers and mountains were full of potency. So materially everything was satisfactory. Therefore there was no question of untimely giving up his kingdom and life. The sages were eager to hear about all this. Please repeat this translation. He was such a great emperor that all his enemies would come and bow down at his feet and surrender all their wealth for their own benefit. He was full of youth and strength, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Why did he want to give up everything, including his life? Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Vjarane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschadrishatarane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namanti yat padaniketam-atmanaha shivasya hani yadhanani shatravaha katam saviraha shriyamanga dushtjam yuvaivasotram aho sahasubihi. So the sages of Naimisharanya, they have assembled. They are headed by Shaunaka Rishi, and the speaker who is narrating the Vedic literatures, particularly the Bhagavatam here, is Suta Goswami. The sages have assembled in the forest of Naimisharanya to perform a 1,000-year sacrifice for the welfare of the entire world. So this scene is set in Kali Yuga, just after Kali Yuga began. We have passed 5,000 years of Kali Yuga. So just when Kali began, a few years, maybe a few years just after Kali Yuga, the sages have assembled at this place for hearing the glories of the Supreme Lord. And the sages of Naimisharanya are putting forward questions to the speaker, Suta Goswami. And this Suta Goswami was previously present when the Srimad-Bhagavatam was originally spoken by Shukadev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. So he had heard the Bhagavatam. So they are asking him different questions. And the sages are very eager to know about the speaker of the Bhagavatam, who originally spoke the Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami, and the hearer of the Bhagavatam, who first heard the Bhagavatam, Parikshit Maharaj. So in this last few verses, they have discussed and asked questions about Shukadev Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam. And then they also asked, how did the great king Parikshit Maharaj meet this great personality, Shukadev Goswami? And they also asked that Parikshit Maharaj was a great devotee of the Lord. He was a first-class devotee of the Lord, and his birth and activities are all wonderful. Please describe all those activities in detail. And now, in this verse, they are very eager to know that Parikshit Maharaj was such a great emperor, and all his enemies, so great he was, what is the estimation given of his greatness, that even his enemies would come, bow at his feet, and surrender all their wealth, and that too with what attitude, consciousness, that my dear king, we are offering all this wealth at your lotus feet for our benefit. So this much command Parikshit Maharaj had over everyone, including his enemies. They would come, offer their respects, surrender their wealth, and then say that we are giving this wealth so that we become benefited by offering all this wealth to you. So this was the command Parikshit Maharaj had. And we also know that when we say Parikshit Maharaj was a great emperor, 5,000 years ago, the scene is set. At that time, the entire planet, Bharatavarsha, today we refer to as a small portion of land in this earth planet. 5,000 years ago, Bharatavarsha referred to this entire planet. So the whole world, whole planet was being controlled and ruled by kings who would sit in Hastinapur, which is now known as New Delhi. So practically, Parikshit Maharaj was the ruler of the entire, all 7 continents of this universe, of this earth planet. He was the ruler, and all the kings across the world would come, offer their respects and their wealth with great awe and reverence. So this was the kind of command that Parikshit Maharaj had, total control over all his subjects. And further, the sages are asking, Parikshit Maharaj was also very young. He was full of youth and he full of strength. Not that he was an old man. He was full of youth, and he possessed insuperable kingly opulences. Even ordinary kings in this world, they possess a lot of opulence. They have enough wealth to enjoy themselves. And Parikshit Maharaj was Chakravarti. He was emperor of all emperors. So he possessed insuperable opulences which cannot be surpassed by others. So such a person who was full of youth, who was full of strength, and he possessed so practically unlimited kingly opulences, why did he want to give up everything, including his life? So the sages are indirectly saying that he had all the capacity to enjoy this world to the best of his satisfaction. He could get anything he wanted for his enjoyment. There was nothing which Parikshit Maharaj could not obtain. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that what was the state of kingdom of Parikshit Maharaj? There was nothing undesirable in the life of Parikshit Maharaj. He could have enjoyed life in the best possible way. There was no reason to retire from active life. He was an able king. He was administering well. All the subjects loved him. He had no threat from enemies. Sometimes king is threatened by his enemies. He may decide, okay, let me go to the forest and take sannyas. It's very difficult to handle these enemies. That is also not the case with Parikshit Maharaj. The enemies are coming, bowing down at his feet, offering all their wealth, and then they are saying that it is our fortune that we are able to offer all this wealth to you. So there was no reason to retire from active life. He conquered his enemies, and because of this, his kingdom was prosperous. And Prabhupada writes, there was sufficient milk, sufficient grains, enough metals, rivers were full, hills and mountains were abundant with all natural resources. Everything was satisfactory for a happy material life. So there is nothing which you can point out and say, this particular thing Parikshit Maharaj did not have, and this was the cause of his dissatisfaction. Therefore, he retired from active life. There was nothing. So there was no reason for him to give up the kingdom before the appropriate time. Generally, kings, the Vedic culture, they lead a life full of power and opulence. And generally at the end of their life, when they become quite old, they hand over the kingdom to their son, and then they retire to the forest to perform tapasya. So that is considered appropriate time. So in the case of Parikshit Maharaj, there is no such reason also why he had to give up the kingdom before the appropriate time. And the sages were very, very eager to know all these things about Parikshit Maharaj. And practically, the answer to this whole question, is the entire first canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So Srimad-Bhagavatam further in the different chapters describes all these things one by one in detail. And before describing the birth and activities of Parikshit Maharaj, Srimad-Bhagavatam describes how Vyasadeva's description is given, his birth is given, because all these incidents, different personalities, they are all connected. Connected to what? Connected to how the Srimad-Bhagavatam came about. So there is a connection between all these different things. So when the sages asked this question, why did Parikshit Maharaj give up and explain his life and activities to him, Bhagavatam further goes on to describe how Vyasadeva appeared at the beginning of the millennium of Kali Yuga. Just then when Kali Yuga began, when Dwapara Yuga ended, how Vyasadeva appeared from the womb of Satyavati. And then there was a great conversation between Vyasadeva and Narada Muni, because Vyasadeva, Vyasa is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord, specifically descended to compile all the Vedic literatures. So he had done all that. Despite compiling, putting down in writing all the Vedic literatures, Vyasadeva was still not happy. He was still having dissatisfaction in his heart. So at that time Narada Muni arrives and then counsels him, gives him proper advice, and finds out the exact cause of the disappointment of Vyasadeva, and he points out that you have not exclusively described the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and therefore you are dissatisfied, so kindly do that. So that was the inspiration for Vyasadeva to compose the Srimad-Bhagavatam. Then further Bhagavatam goes on to describe how at the end of the Mahabharata war, Ashwathama, he decided to finish off or kill the last surviving member of the Kuru dynasty. The war happened between the Pandavas and Kauravas, and nobody survived except for the 5 Pandavas and Kripacharya and Kritavarma and Ashwathama and Dhritarashtra. That's all. All others were killed in the battlefield. So Ashwathama, he was very eager to kill the last surviving descendant of the Kuru dynasty, who was none other than Parikshit Maharaj, who was at that time in the womb of his mother Uttara. So after doing that, after attempting to do that, further Bhagavatam describes how Parikshit Maharaj, when he was in the womb of his mother, he was protected by the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So the story goes that Ashwathama attempts to hurl a Brahmastra in the womb of Uttara, and Uttara, feeling terrible pain in her womb, she prays to the Supreme Lord Krishna, and Krishna enters the womb of Uttara, and after entering the womb of Uttara, Krishna saves Parikshit Maharaj. And at that time, Parikshit Maharaj, even though he is in the womb of his mother, he is able to see the Supreme Lord personally. And because he is able to see the Supreme Lord personally, when he comes out as a child, he is always trying to examine who is that person whom I was fortunate enough to see in the womb. And therefore he got the name Parikshit, because Pariksha means to examine. So Parikshit, that is how he got the name. And then further goes on to describe the life and activities of Parikshit Maharaj. And at one point of time, Parikshit Maharaj, he commits a small mistake unknowingly. And of course, the Acharyas explained that there was no mistake on the part of Parikshit Maharaj, because it was ordained by the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. So the incident so happens that one day Parikshit Maharaj is going to the forest to hunt, and in the process of hunting, he goes so deep into the forest that he is very, very thirsty. So in search of water, he goes to a particular place where there is a cottage of a particular rishi, and there he sees that the rishi is completely absorbed deeply in trance and meditation. Shri Krishna Rukmani Satyabhama ki Shri Krishna Balaram Shri Gaurnitai. So the rishi, because he was absorbed in deep meditation, he did not take note of the arrival of Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj, being very thirsty, he expected that the rishi would receive him and offer him some water. And because there was no such reception, there was no such hospitality, even after Parikshit Maharaj entered the cottage, Parikshit Maharaj was little upset, and he took a dead snake which was lying nearby, and he put it as a garland on the sage, and he went away. Now, after a few moments, the Rishi's son, he comes and sees that his father has been insulted like this. His father did not know. When he came out of his trance and meditation, he saw somebody has put a dead snake, he just discarded it. But when the son, he saw that my father has been insulted like that, somebody has put a dead snake as a garland on my father, he was very upset, and he immediately cursed Parikshit Maharaj to die within 7 days. So although there was no real offense on the part of Parikshit Maharaj, the Acharyas explained that by the will of the Supreme Lord, all such incidents had to happen, because Parikshit Maharaj was supposed to give up his kingdom so that he could go and meet Shukadeva Goswami, who was already there on the banks of the Ganges, and you could inquire from him about the purpose of this human form of life, specifically the duties of a person who is about to die. So Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die within 7 days, and as soon as he got to know that I am going to die within 7 days, without even considering any other situation, simply he renounced his entire kingdom. Immediately he renounced everything when he got to know that he has only 7 days time left, and he went to the banks of the Ganges and sat there hoping for some guidance. So there were many great personalities in that assembly, but nobody could give a satisfactory answer to Parikshit Maharaj as to what should be his duty, as only 7 days are remaining in his life. So at that time, Shukadeva Goswami walks into the whole assembly, and Shukadeva Goswami explains to him the purpose of a person, the duties of a person who is about to die within 7 days. And practically the entire answer, the answer to Parikshit Maharaj's question is practically the entire Srimad-Bhagavatam. That is how Bhagavatam proceeds. So all this, the sages are very eager to know, because they are very inquisitive about a great personality like Parikshit Maharaj. Particularly, they are inquisitive because generally kings who lead a very opulent life, who are leading a very materially satisfactory life, they do not give up their kingdom in an untimely way. After finishing their entire material enjoyment, at the end of their life, they may take to the forest life, of a life of tapasya. But in the case of Parikshit Maharaj, they were very, very astonished as to why did he give up in such an untimely way. So the answer to this question is described in the next few chapters of the Srimad-Bhagavatam as to how Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die within 7 days, and because of that, he decided to go and take shelter of a great personality who can give him guidance. Now the point which is mentioned here in the future verses of the Bhagavatam is that Parikshit Maharaj was not forced to go to the forest and give up his kingdom. Even when he was cursed to die within 7 days, Parikshit Maharaj was a powerful person who could have counteracted this curse. It is not that out of desperation, having no other option in life, because he is forced to die, cursed to die within 7 days, Parikshit Maharaj took this extraordinary step of renouncing the kingdom. So the Srila Prabhupada explains that Parikshit Maharaj could have easily counteracted the curse. He was a powerful person. He was a very powerful king. He was a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. He could have counteracted the curse by the Brahmana boy and continued to engage in devotional service as well as his kingly duties. He could have done that. But Parikshit Maharaj agreed to accept the curse by the Brahmana boy as the will of the Supreme Lord. He accepted the curse of the Brahmana boy as the will of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, consciously, although he had the power to counteract the curse, continue to rule his subjects, continue to engage in devotional service, because he was a devotee of the Supreme Lord. He could have engaged in devotional service even when he was as a king, with all the kingly opulence and all exercise of power over the subjects. But Parikshit Maharaj, when he was cursed, it was not out of desperation. It was not that he had no other option in life, therefore he decided to go to the forest. He did that because he accepted the curse of the Brahmana boy as the will of the Supreme Lord. Parikshit Maharaj's thinking was that now I have been cursed by this Brahmana boy. It is actually the will of the Supreme Lord that I should give up all my kingdom. So he did not resist the divine plan which the Supreme Lord had for him. And in this way, Parikshit Maharaj decided to go to the forest and not go to the forest, decided to go to the banks of the Ganges and seek guidance from somebody who can tell him as to what the duties are of a person who is about to die. So great personalities like Parikshit Maharaj, when they take such decisions in life, apparently it appears as if that they are forced to take such decisions, because that is what happens in the lives of ordinary people. Some circumstances arise by which a person is unable to continue his life in a particular way, and because of that a person tends to take some extreme decision. But in the case of Parikshit Maharaj, we see that Parikshit Maharaj was not under any compulsion to give up his kingdom. He was a great king, he had a lot of wealth, he had complete control over his subjects, and his own enemies used to come and surrender all their wealth. He was full of youth, he was full of strength, he possessed insuperable kingly opulences, and also he was a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. So he could have continued to engage in devotional service as a king, continued in his position as a king, as an emperor, and engaged in devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and he could have counteracted the curse of the Brahmana boy also. There was nothing which stopped him from doing that. But voluntarily, Parikshit Maharaj took this decision not to counteract the curse, because he accepted the curse as the will of the Supreme Lord. And because he accepted the curse as the will of the Supreme Lord, therefore, out of his own sweet will, out of his own volition, he decided to go and seek guidance of Shukadev Goswami. He renounced his kingdom. So, the renunciation of a great personality like Parikshit Maharaj is not done out of force. It is not done out of compulsion, but out of their own free will. Some people in the material world, they may be forced to renounce something. Nothing is going on nicely in life. They are making different attempts to become successful. They are not able to be successful in their activities. At that time, a person may think, let me renounce all these things. This material world is not a very nice place to live. So temporarily, person may get such feelings of renunciation. But all such renunciation doesn't last for long. When the circumstances become favorable, once again, when the situation is favorable for enjoying this material world, all that renunciation is all forgotten. In Hindi, they say, Raat gayi, baat gayi. That's all that is forgotten. And then again, when the person comes back to enjoy his material world. So, Parikshit Maharaj's renunciation was not like that. He did not renounce the world because his capacity to enjoy the material world was restricted or suffocated in any way. He had full capacity to enjoy this world. He had all the kingly opulences. Only thing, he was cursed by a Brahmana boy to die within 7 days, and Bhagavatam mentions that he could have counteracted that also. That power also he had. So he could have thought, I am a great devotee of the Supreme Lord. Unknowingly some mistake happened and this Brahmana boy has cursed me. In fact, the Brahmana boy's father came and condemned him. Said, you have done a great mistake by cursing Parikshit Maharaj. It is not at all right on your part to have cursed him, because he is such a great king. He is a protector of the entire world. He is a protector of all the subjects. Just because he put a dead snake on my neck when I was deep in meditation, such a heavy punishment you have given him. You have cursed him to die within 7 days. What a great offense you have done. So all this was well aware, known to Parikshit Maharaj, but still he did not choose to counteract the curse of the Brahmana boy. He accepted it as the will of the Supreme Lord. So these are all symptoms of great personalities. Whenever they take some step, whenever they renounce this world, it is not out of frustration, it is not out of some inability to enjoy this material world, but out of a higher purpose. That higher purpose is always the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. So because they are always wanting to satisfy the Supreme Lord, they always want to act according to the will of the Lord. Great personalities, great devotees like Parikshit Maharaj, they do not want to do anything which is against the will of the Lord. Therefore, their renunciation is not like the renunciation of ordinary people. Ordinary people in this world, sometimes we can get feelings of renunciation because nothing is going right in life. But Parikshit Maharaj's renunciation was not like that. It was not motivated out of some circumstances by which he was forced to renounce his kingdom and go away. So therefore, his renunciation is on the absolute platform. He renounced everything for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, although he could have enjoyed this material world very nicely. So we find a similar instance in the life of our beloved spiritual master Srila Prabhupada also. that in the beginning days, the first ISKCON temple was situated in a place called 26 2nd Avenue. It was a storefront, and that is a place where Prabhupada was staying, and he would give classes there on 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Prabhupada used to hold Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-gita classes in the evenings and in the mornings. And he also used to do kirtan, and some young boys, young American boys used to come, and they used to hear his classes, attend the kirtan. And Prabhupada also used to cook prasadam for all of them and feed all of them. So that is how initially ISKCON started. There was no big temple, there was no big arrangement or any big facility. It was just a small storefront. It was a small room with very minimal facilities. So one devotee who used to come there regularly and attend Prabhupada's lectures, he noticed that every day after all the food is cooked and everybody has taken their meals and prasadam, next day all the vessels are washed. Everything is washed, everything is kept neat, all the vessels are washed, the cooking vessels, the serving vessels, everything is washed. So you always used to wonder who is doing all these things. Because Prabhupada was a very elderly person. He was almost 71, 72 at that age. And everyone knew Prabhupada had health issues. He was not in the best of his health. And there was no servant, there was no servant maid, there was no housemaid, there was no person to assist Prabhupada in all those things. And the initial days, the young boys, American boys who used to come, they did not know how to behave with a spiritual master, a guru and all those things. They used to come, attend classes, take some prasadam and they used to go away, that's all. So this devotee used to wonder, how is it that everything is getting arranged very neatly for the next day's event again? So one night when he came inside, he observed that after all the young boys used to go away, finish their dinner and everything, Prabhupada in the dead of the night, in the midnight, he used to sit and he used to wash all the vessels personally. He used to clean up all the utensils, all the leftovers, everything, and arrange everything perfectly nicely for the next day's program. So the devotee writes that later on in his days, when he got to know about Prabhupada, that Prabhupada also, he was very well situated in Vrindavan. At the age of 59, when Prabhupada took sannyas, he went and stayed in Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. And Prabhupada was very well situated. He was very well known among the Gaudiya Vaishnava society as somebody who could give very nice lectures and who could sing very nice kirtan. So everybody liked Abhay Babu, as he was known, and later Bhaktivedanta Swami. They all knew, oh, Abhay Babu, he sings very nicely and he gives very nice lectures. He's a very great scholar in the Bhagavatam. So they all liked him. So that devotee writes that Prabhupada could have stayed in any Gaudiya Math temple very comfortably, very happily, and he could have tried to do some preaching of Krishna consciousness. He could have done all those things. But still, Prabhupada in the midst of all these hippies, he was washing vessels in the mid of the night after all these people have gone away. And all this tapasya, all this struggle Prabhupada was taking simply because he wanted to execute the order of his spiritual master. The devotee writes what all difficulties Prabhupada had to undergo. So Prabhupada also going to the West and undertaking all these difficulties was not forced upon him. It was not due to circumstances. Prabhupada could have stayed in Vrindavan very comfortably. He was very well respected. People liked him very much. His kirtans were very famous. His lectures also very well sought after. And everything, all facilities were very well arranged in the Radha Damodar temple where Prabhupada was staying. He was translating. He had darshan of the deities every day. And everything was nice. For a sannyasi to execute his devotional service, everything was very favorable. So that devotee writes all these things. He describes. But still Prabhupada went and undertook a lot of difficulties in the initial days to set up this entire ISKCON institution. In fact, when Prabhupada first came to America, there was only 1 month sponsor available for him. Somebody had agreed that Swamiji, 1 month your stay will be taken care of in America. After that, you have to manage on your own. So Prabhupada came to America. For 1 month, he got to stay in somebody's place. And after that, that's all. There was nothing where to look up, look down, look left, look right. He had no idea. And then Prabhupada comes to New York from there. And there, due to some contact, previously he had some contact of somebody, he got to stay in one person's yoga studio, Dr. Mishra's yoga studio. So there, Prabhupada tried to do some preaching, tried to give classes and get some people interested. But that Dr. Mishra, he held a different philosophical view. His philosophical view was that God is impersonal. God has no form. So he very respectfully, he told Prabhupada, Swamiji, you are a very nice scholar, but you cannot speak about Krishna here. Because your philosophical view is different. I hold that God is ultimately formless, so you cannot speak here. So that place also Prabhupada could not really start his Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada left that place and he took another room in the same apartment, in the same building, in the ground floor. That is room number 307, that room. And in that room, there was no bathroom, there was no toilet, there were no facilities. So every day, Prabhupada, at the age of 70 years, he had to walk all the way 3 floors up. In the 3rd floor, Dr. Mishra's studio was there. And in the ground floor, this room Prabhupada had taken, there were no facilities there. Prabhupada came to that room because upstairs he could not preach Krishna conscious philosophy openly. Dr. Mishra was respectful, but he said, no, you cannot talk that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead here. So therefore, Prabhupada had to come there. From there, for every single small to use the bathroom or anything, Prabhupada had to walk 3 floors up. And that is how initially he was trying to get some boys. All this because Prabhupada thought, if I have an independent place, I will be able to speak Krishna conscious philosophy without any obstruction. And all the while, Prabhupada was writing letters to India, to different people, different contacts, different God brothers. Please send some money. I would like to open a temple here. I would like to open a small center for propagating Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada did not receive any help actually. There was no help. All the contacts which he had, he wrote down, they all turned down their offer. And one day, it so happened that in that room number 307 where Prabhupada was staying, his typewriter was stolen and his dictaphone was stolen. That was very important for Prabhupada because with that only he was doing all the translation. He would type all the manuscripts, the translations, and these Bhaktivedanta purports he used to type using the typewriter, and the dictaphone, the machine he used to dictate at nights. Both of them got stolen in that room. And Prabhupada did not have money at that time. With whatever money he had to pay rent for that room. And he had to manage his food, his clothing, his expenses. Sometimes he has to go out, purchase a bus ticket. And all of a sudden, this typewriter gets stolen. So some people whom Prabhupada was preaching to, who used to come and attend some classes, they gave another typewriter and another machine for Prabhupada to work on. But then there was no guarantee that this will not get stolen again. So that was a problem. So Prabhupada decided, I want to shift this place. So he was looking for an alternate place. So one young American boy, he came there and he said, Swamiji, there is one place. This place is called Bowery, number 94 Bowery Street. If you come there, a lot of young boys come there for different things. So you can get a good audience. So Prabhupada was very excited. A lot of young boys would come. So that is why I have come to America to preach Krishna consciousness. So he decided to go to Bowery. And in that same building, there was an electrician who was working. When he heard that Prabhupada is going to Bowery, he told Swamiji, please don't go to that place. There's the worst place in America. All kinds of crazy people, drug addicts, derelicts, psychedelics. You don't know what they will do when. They may go crazy any moment. So please don't go there. Even respectable Americans, they cannot go and stay there, who are used to all the American culture. Even they cannot stay there. Please don't go to the Bowery. It's a very risky place. You're an elderly man, and definitely there will be some trouble there. So in this way, Prabhupada was left with no other choice. So Prabhupada could have decided, no, Bowery, the electrician had warned him. He was a localite. He knew the people in the Bowery. But still, Prabhupada decided, no. If I have to preach the message of Krishna consciousness, if there are some young people who will come and hear Krishna, about Krishna, my spiritual master's mission order will be fulfilled. So Prabhupada took the risk and then he went to that 94 Bowery Street. And exactly as that electrician had warned, after a few days, there was another boy who was staying with Prabhupada. That boy went crazy because he was a drug addict. That electrician had warned him, don't go to the Bowery. All kinds of crazy people stay there. Anybody can go crazy any moment. They may do anything to you. And exactly as that electrician had told, this happened. One boy went crazy in the middle of the night. He was very respectful. He was very nice to Prabhupada. But he was also a drug addict. So we don't know what will happen to their state of mind. So one night he went crazy and he threatened to kill Prabhupada in the middle of the night. So Prabhupada had to run out of that room in the midnight around 12:30. He had to run away, and practically he was in the streets. He didn't know where to go, what to. He cannot go back to Bowery. That fellow has not given up his craziness. So Prabhupada was literally wandering in the midnight, where to go, what to do, whom to meet. And finally he went and knocked somebody else's house who used to attend these classes. And that day night, Prabhupada spent there, he slept there. And then finally, after that, a few others helped him to find a new place. And then they got this 26 Second Avenue, that storefront. And that is where the first ISKCON temple was established. So the point is, although Prabhupada could have lived very comfortably in Vrindavan, he could have made very nice arrangements for himself and then tried to spread Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada was not concerned about all these things. And his only desire and determination was to fulfill the desire of his spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And with all that, this entire ISKCON society, as we see today across the world, hundreds of temples, thousands of devotees, so many devotees singing kirtan, giving classes, having prasadam, an international brand name ISKCON has got. All this is because that initial days Prabhupada took lot of tapasya. His health was failing, financially he had practically very less money, and the people with whom he was staying, they were all not very cultured and well behaved and all those things. Sometimes Prabhupada even had to store his foodstuff along with some cat's meat. The person with whom he was staying, he used to feed some meat to his cat. So he also used to keep the same foodstuff in the same refrigerator. And there was no option. Prabhupada could not, those days there was practically no facilities. But Prabhupada tolerated all these things. He accepted all this tapasya because he was only concerned about fulfilling his spiritual master's desire. And that is how Prabhupada built this entire Krishna conscious. Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki, Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. So with this we will stop today's Srimad-Bhagavatam class. Granthara Srimad-Bhagavatam ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.